You're listening to Menopause Natural Solutions, episode 64, Endometrial Hyperplasia and Perimenopause. Welcome to Menopause Natural Solutions, your podcast for all things perimenopause, menopause and beyond. Stay tuned as your host, naturopath Jennifer Harrington, explains how to use natural therapies to find your ultimate health and happiness during your transition. Hi ladies, it's Jen here from Menopause Natural Solutions. I hope you are doing well. Anyway, today I have another interesting topic, and this one is endometrial hyperplasia, which is actually quite common in the menopausal transition. But before we get started, I wanted to ask you if you knew about my Facebook group. If not, jump over to the Facebook group and join in so you can stay a track of everything that's going on at Menopause Natural Solutions. Well, anyway, back to today's topic, which is endometrial hyperplasia. And it really is just an abnormal thickening of the uterine lining or the endometrium. It is not cancer, but it has been linked with increasing your risk of uterine cancer down the track. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back to the basics and explain what's going on. Your endometrial thickness changes in response to hormones. In a fertile woman, estrogen is the dominant hormone in the first part of the cycle. Estrogen is a growth hormone. Think about puberty when you first started producing estrogen. Your hips and breasts grew and your period started. Estrogen thickens and prepares the endometrium in preparation for pregnancy. Once you ovulate, your progesterone levels start to climb. Progesterone is needed for this final stage of endometrial preparation for implantation of a fertilized egg and to maintain pregnancy. If pregnancy doesn't occur, menstruation is triggered by the falling progesterone levels. Menstruation is a reset. Your endometrial lining sheds and the cycle is ready to begin again. So what happens in perimenopause is that you stop regularly ovulating. But it's from the act of ovulation that the corpus luteum is formed. And the corpus luteum is formed from where the egg ruptured out of your ovary. And it's the corpus luteum that produces the progesterone for the second half of your cycle. No ovulation, no corpus luteum, no progesterone. So the unopposed estrogen is available to continue growing the lining. Hence, endometrial hyperplasia occurs. Some common signs that this is what's happening is a heavier or a longer bleed than normal. It could be a significantly shorter cycle, and these are generally less than 21 days. And any kind of bleed after menopause could be hyperplasia. So if you are experiencing any of these symptoms, you may like to ask your doctor for a transvaginal ultrasound. And if your endometrial lining is thicker than expected, they should also take a biopsy at the same time. The World Health Organization has classified your results into 4 sections. The first 2 are simple or complex, and these have only a 1 to 1.6% chance of developing into cancer. They're really low risk. The 3rd and 4th type are atypical simple or atypical complex. Now these categories have abnormal cell changes, but they don't have the invasion into connective tissue, which is a defining characteristic of cancer. But in the long run, if left untreated, roughly 22% of women with this kind of hyperplasia may develop uterine cancer. So it's certainly worth addressing. And here's where things get really interesting. as, can you believe it, treatment recommendations change depending where in the world you live. If you're in the US, they are very pro-surgery. They will whip out your uterus in no time. And I actually recently heard a US gynecologist say that there's no room in the tomb for the womb. And I thought that was quite shocking. But anyway, and where they seem to be more on the conservative side in the UK, where they like to monitor first and to see. But anyway, your options include monitoring, progesterone treatment, or surgery. And with surgery, there's multiple different surgical possibilities. Sometimes they do a partial hysterectomy. More common, they do a complete hysterectomy. And with all of these options, seeing a naturopath like myself can help to improve all health outcomes. If you choose to work with me, here's what I would be looking at doing if you were given the monitoring or the progesterone option. And there's 11 points we're going to go through here, so there's a lot. So first of all, I want to improve your hormone balance. I want to increase metabolism of estrogen and clearance of estrogen. I want to optimize your progesterone production and your sex hormone binding globulin, which is SBHG for short. If you haven't heard of sex binding hormone globulin before, it's actually a globulin, believe it or not, that binds to your hormone, estrogen in this regard, and inactivates it. So it's really great. And flax seeds are a really simple way of increasing SBHG. You gotta laugh or you cry sometimes. Anyway, that's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is optimize your digestive function and the health of your estrobolome. Your estrobolome is a collection of digestive microbes that regulate the circulation and the excretion of estrogen. And they do this by producing beta-glucuronidase. You can test beta-glucuronidase levels. And a healthy digestive system also requires lots of fiber, so fresh fruits, vegetables, salads, and flax seeds. So another reason why I like flax seeds is for the fiber, and another is that they are a phytoestrogen. And phytoestrogens are plant-based estrogen-like substances that are similar in structure to estrogen and can weakly bind to estrogen receptors, and this effectively reduces the number of available receptors. How good is that? All of that in one food. The third objective is to reduce your menstrual flow. For most women with endometrial hyperplasia, they're having significantly heavy flows. So we want to try and reduce that. And I would use what's called uterine astringent type herbs in order to stop the flooding that can occur each time you menstruate. And then point 4 would be, because you're losing so much blood, I really want to prescribe key blood-building nutrients so that you can build new blood after you have lost it each month. Point 5 is addressing and reducing inflammatory markers. Inflammation on its own is a risk factor for developing uterine cancer. So dietary changes are needed. One of the most inflammatory foods is sugar. So you need to move away from a processed diet and towards a real food, anti-inflammatory diet. So think about foods that you find in nature. Your fruits, your vegetables, your salads, and your animal proteins. Some nuts, some seeds, some phytoestrogens, those kind of things are ideal. Point 6 is to optimize your weight. If you are overweight, were you aware that this significantly increases your risk of developing endometrial cancer? Point 7 is that certain diseases encourage the growth of endometrial hyperplasia. Did you know that? If you have imbalanced blood sugar levels or diabetes, it's really important to balance that out. And other diseases that are linked with endometrial hyperplasia are poor gallbladder function and thyroid disease. Point 8 is to optimize your antioxidant status. And on a fun note, the antioxidants from coffee have been found to be protective against uterine cancer. So when I looked at this research, it wasn't looking at caffeine. So it can be caffeine decaffeinated or standard coffee. And I probably wouldn't go there if coffee triggers hot flushes. So in a lot of women it does, but not in all. There are plenty of other antioxidants that you can look at, but I just thought that was interesting with coffee. Point 9 is supporting you in quitting smoking if you are a smoker. Point 10 is achieving and maintaining optimal physical activity. There is a link between inactivity and the development of endometrial cancers. So guys, I hope you listened to my interview last week about exercise being the ultimate medication, because it really is, and it's free. You can do it from home. You can do it anywhere. I want to see you moving. And the final point is assessing for and removing xenoestrogens, which are environmental estrogen-like substances, as they would contribute to you being in an estrogen-dominant state. So you can see there is so much to work on. Please don't try and do this on your own. I offer a complimentary call if you'd like to discuss it with me and see if we can work together. Finally, if the outcome is surgery, I'm not going to try and talk you out of it. I'm going to use the time we have prior to surgery to set you up for the ultimate success. But not just the best surgery outcome, but I also want to see a speedy recovery and optimal health afterwards. And this is especially important if you're having a complete hysterectomy, as you will become menopausal instantly. So please don't delay in reaching out if this is you. Ideally, we would have 2 to 3 months to work together, but this is hardly ever the case. Even 2 weeks preparation is better than none. We can do the best we can with the time we have available. Well, I hope this has been a useful topic for you today. Can I ask you a favour? If you're enjoying my podcast, can you please leave me a 5-star rating and review so that I know that my time is being well spent and that you are enjoying the podcast? Well, I want to wish you all the very best week possible, and I look forward to chatting with you once again next week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to Menopause Natural Solutions. This podcast contains general information about menopause. It is provided as a guide, and it is not intended to replace medical advice. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please leave a rating and review.